Dion Hinchcliffe here, VP and Principal Analyst at Constellation Research, covering CIO topics and future of work.
And I'm Doug Henschen, VP and Principal Analyst of Data to Decisions. And we're your co-hosts for episode 67 of CRTV.
We're here to talk about the news, trends, and innovations in enterprise technology and IT.
And in this episode, following our news segment, Holger and I are going to share our recap of Workday Rising a couple weeks ago there in San Francisco.
And in our final segment, Larry Dignan interviews SuperNova Awards finalist Mary Kent of Magnox to learn about their breakthrough customer experience. But first, let's get to the news and welcome Constellation Insights Editor-in-Chief, Larry Dignan.
Hey, welcome, Larry. So what's up in your world these days? What's hot in the news?
Well, we have tech earnings coming up, and with that usually comes a confessional season where there's profit warnings and, charges and things like that are detailed before the company actually reports earnings. And what's interesting this go round is a lot of the confessions have to do with cybersecurity attacks. So MGM came out the other day and basically said they're taking a $100 million hit due to an attack. And it's interesting because they sounds like they did a decent job of containing the damage. Like they had to switch over to manual systems for a bit for all the customer facing stuff. And there was a breach where driver's license numbers, passwords, social security numbers, and there's some real data that got lost. But they did say they managed to contain it all to September. So the fiscal year is actually going to be pretty decent. And they also noted that most of the attack is covered by cyber insurance. So then their cost just becomes a case of remediation. The other one that I'm actively watching is Clorox. They got attacked and all their manufacturing systems and order taking systems got taken offline. So they came out and said their sales will be down anywhere from 23 to 28%, which given Clorox's size, that's a real big number. And they also said they're going to swing from what was going to be an estimated profit to, pretty big loss per share. They had to switch to manual order processing, then just couldn't handle the volume because they had just operated at a really big scale. So they're taking a hit, and then they're going to update us when they report earnings on what it looks like for their fiscal year ahead. The other one was Caesars, which reportedly just paid the ransomware attack or ransomware fee and got their systems back up and all that good stuff. So those events are really worth watching because companies do have to disclose, the breach, the cost, the hits, what's covered by insurance, and all that good stuff. So it's very interesting reading. And that really sets us up for tech earnings ahead. We have a unique setup this time where, stocks have been fairly hammered. So I'm not sure where that's going to put expectations, but, if you hit estimates and you do project some growth or whatever, you're probably going to come out looking okay. It's just a case of, it's a weird setup this time since we're not really sure how the stocks will react to this news. In the tech space, companies seem to be managing things pretty well. And a lot of the analysts are looking for, those generative AI add-ons to add to revenue and things like that. So it's going to be an interesting earnings season ahead.
Larry, let's go. Clorox, 23 to 26% for the whole quarter hit?
Yeah.
That's immense.
They went from projecting mid-single digits growth in the current quarter, which is I think is their first fiscal first quarter, to sales falling 23 to 28%.
And Caesar's paying the ransom.
Yeah, those were
the Venmo.
Well, you normally pay these things in Bitcoin.
Parking lot.
I say probably in crypto, but we hear this over and over again from our CIO network that ransomware is a real thing, and our segments like in healthcare where lives are lost, and it's become a very significant problem. I was just giving a keynote here in the Baltics around cybersecurity, and we were looking at the budgets for this, and budgets are up double digit again this year. It's unsustainable, and it seems like the the ransomware ecosystem is what everyone's calling this now, where you can almost order this up. Even if you don't have the capabilities, you can go to the dark web and say, I think this company is vulnerable, help me go after them, has become a really significant issue. And so costs are out of control, even if, you can say, hey, it's remediation and cost of insurance. It seems like, over the next 3 to 5 years, it's an unsustainable situation from a budget perspective. I don't know how our organizations are going to do it. And
well, the other thing is insurance rates go up too. Yeah,
exactly.
So once you get hit, your cyber rates go up, dramatically also. So yeah, it is unsustainable, and I don't know what really fixes it, because it's not like cybersecurity goes away.
I guess a lot of companies are ignoring the never pay ransom admonitions, and just paying it is no guarantee you're going to get your data back. From what I've read, less than 10% of companies do get all of their data back. Maybe they get some of their data, or it's hacked, but
you don't get your reputation.
No guarantee you're going to get back on track, is it?
Yeah, I think it is a case of, you just got to do the math. I mean, I don't know if Clorox was exactly ransomware, but it was an attack that wiped out their order taking ability and their automation. So they were just sunk in the water. They just couldn't get product out the door. Now there may be a catch up in the future because all the retailers got to restock. But if you're in a situation like that, you have to look at the hit, weigh the ransom, and it's a real calculation.
So Dion, what are you looking at?
Well, I bet you're shocked to hear that generative AI is really impacting things out there. Where we really see some interesting movement is in cloud, in the hyperscalers in general. And the latest data has shown that AWS growth has slowed down a little bit. They don't have a really strong AI story. They came late to the game. The hardware vendors like NVIDIA, who have the CUDA programming language and framework around AI, and it's turned out to be a brilliant bet. 250 different frameworks now depend on that. And Amazon has Trainium, and they have their own chips, but it really aimed more at enterprise use than these breakthrough Gen AI startups. Now, Amazon's added Anthropic AI late last month. That could end up being something, but we seem to be exiting the cloud 1.0 era, which AWS completely dominated. Google and Microsoft have chipped away. Microsoft's really made great strides, in fact, in cloud. But those two have now come out with a very strong AI stories. Microsoft in particular has done a tremendous job at Google too. We just saw everything at Google Cloud Next, where they really are partnering very closely with NVIDIA, which really owns the whole chip market and the software stack around AI. And the expectation is the growth rate of Google and Azure is going to just blow AWS out of the water over the next quarter. And it's a troubling sign for the giant who's made virtually no missteps. And there's no really AWS graveyard like there is with Google. Microsoft's always had to lock in with enterprises, but we seem to be finally, Gen AI is going to push us into a new cloud 2.0 era. We don't really have a good phrase for it. We've been kicking around super cloud and all these other notions about multi-cloud and what we're going to do. But we now see that the horses really change for the first time in the cloud race ever. And Gen AI may be leading to that. So that's the buzz right now in cloud circles. I think it's going to be very interesting to watch. AWS got to really struggle through its real, big execution gap, and what has become one of the most important technology developments in a generation.
I wouldn't count them out. I think they've got such scale, and they're clearly got a lot of work going into Bedrock and everything else that they've got working. So I think I will reserve judgment until we see what they've got to reinvent in the way of catch up. I think they got to do what Microsoft has done in terms of indemnifying their customers on the use of their products, the use of their models, etc.
Yeah, I generally speaking, I think the demise of AWS is greatly exaggerated. And I think hats off to Microsoft. They came out with a great story, but they also do seem to be so tethered to OpenAI that I think it's going to wind up hurting them a bit in the future. Because I do think these models, generative AI, I think these features and capabilities and models are going to get commoditized as fast as it came on the scene. Like, I think we're going to, and that's where I think AWS winds up winning with Bedrock and stuff like that, because they'll have the selection. Now, I do think Oracle and, Google Cloud will definitely make some noise as that gets commoditized too. So I think it's not a clear runaway for AWS, but I think this is so early innings, and I just want to see what happens when things get commoditized. Because that's what AWS does well.
I think really worth watching is that we do see the possibility of the horse change the first time since the beginning of the cloud race. But model choice, I agree with you, Larry. That is absolutely essential. Both Google and AWS have taken a model choice on as a first-class citizen. They say you're going to be able to use all the different models you have for all the special purpose applications and all the different domains and all the industry-specific models that are out there. Governments are churning out models now aimed at different activities, for support entire industries. And you have to be able to run dozens, if not hundreds, of models soon, and the flexibility of doing that is going to be key. That's something that Microsoft actually hasn't done. So interesting.
And Google, clear leader there, more than 100 models in its model garden. Speaking of AI, in my world, been focusing a lot on data integration recently. The integration platform as a service, or iPaaS space. I was in Silicon Valley last week to take in Boomi's world tour stop there. And they announced, no surprise, Boomi AI and Boomi GPT. No shocker, we've seen Gen AI coming into the iPaaS space, Informatica, SnapLogic, Tray.io, Workato. They've got a new CEO at Boomi, Steve Lucas, who seems to have pumped a lot of vigor into Boomi post its Dell spinoff. And Boomi AI is two things. The GPT part, no surprise, is generated integrations, generated automations, the ability of GPT-like capabilities to document and explain integrations and automations. Very helpful stuff. No shocker there, pretty much what we've seen from the other players in iPaaS. But the other part is neural net-based suggestions and integration resolution capabilities. They had a lot of this stuff already in place. They've been working on AI for a number of years, and they're building on 20 years of data, de-identified SaaS data, the integration patterns they've had. And that's really going to be the differentiator for AI capabilities. The companies that had an early start, the companies that have high scale, lots of customers, we're seeing it in the iPaaS category. And in iPaaS, it's really going beyond integration these days. Boomi, for example, stepping up on automation and workflow. And they say their next step is going to be moving up on API management capabilities. We've seen lots of partnerships in the past on API management. Apogee was a favorite, but then it got acquired by Google. Solace is now the go-to partner, but I think a lot of the iPaaS vendors are now adding that API management. And cloud-centric world, it's crucial. But listen, folks, we're really out of time. That's it for this week's news summary. So stay tuned as Holger and I recap Workday Rising, and then Larry is going to interview SuperNova Awards finalist Mary Kent of Magnox.
Hi, I'm Larry Dignan. I'm editor-in-chief with Constellation Insights, and we're here with Mary Kent. She is head of digital transformation and change at Magnox, which is a utility. Hi, Mary. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Larry. How are you? Good
so
to be
I guess
here.
Let's just start out from the top in terms of what your role is and, what your, I guess it's an agency of the UK government, what it does.
Yes, yeah. So Magnox is a subsidiary of the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority. That basically means we are decommissioning 12 of our previous sites. 10 were our first generation nuclear power plants in the UK, and 2 are research sites. So we report into the NDA, which ultimately it goes into the Cabinet Office. So you can see where some of our controls are. In terms of our challenges, so because we're technically still in the nuclear sector, obviously we've got a lot of regulation that we need to comply with. is some maybe more onerous than other organisations in terms of some of the waste that we treat, although all of our nuclear materials is off-site now, so it's mainly some of our legacy waste that we still are treating on sites.
So you have plants that are running and then plants you're decommissioning?
Oh, they're all decommissioning. So we've got one site that's running, which is actually a hydro plant up in North Wales. That's the only site we currently have running.
So what are some of the HR challenges in terms of, like, I know you have retirements coming up. I guess what are some of the, digital employee experience issues when, your group is basically decommissioning things?
So there's lots of challenges, really. I suppose one of the first challenges we have is that up until 2019, we were actually going to be decommissioning ourselves into a state of care and maintenance by about approximately 2029. Once we became under the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority as a subsidiary, we changed direction. Basically, it was a 180 where we were looking to reduce operations significantly. We are now expanding operations, so we're also taking on the AGR EDF nuclear stations that are either defueling at the moment or are still generating, will come to us between 2026 and about 2033. So we're also growing. So in terms of some HR challenges that you can imagine, because our company has been around for 50 plus years, we've got a lot of legacy ways of working. Each of our site operated in a different way, which means we've got different ways of working at each site, not just within HR, but probably wider than that. We have, over the last number of years, we have implemented some digital solutions, which definitely are helping with recruitment activities and performance activities. But again, within the sector, because nuclear new build is fairly high in profile within the UK at the moment, we are competing with other industries in order to attract and retain our employees, our future skill sets.
So your firm basically went from, we're not going to need to hire a bunch of people, to we got to get recruiting.
Yeah, absolutely.
It totally flipped.
Yeah, it really did. We, in fact, generally speaking, we hadn't hired anybody probably for permanently, apart from a backfill, for about 5-10 years. Then we went from a state of not recruiting permanent employees to recruiting quite a considerable amount of permanent employees, as part of the change in strategy. So obviously during that period, we hadn't really made any significant improvements in recruitment procedures or applications, or indeed development, because another challenge we have is actually the age of our workforce. So we've got a workforce that is, within the next 5 to 10 years are likely to retire. So that gives us a challenge in terms of knowledge management, and how do we retain that knowledge? How do we develop our current employees, and how do we have visibility of what their skill sets are, and what their ambition is in terms of what direction they want to go to as well.
So, well, I guess you earned your title in terms of transformation and change, given that 180.
Yeah.
So if I'm following this correctly, you had a bunch of older legacy systems in place. What was sort of the process and plan to, update in terms of just making, things more cohesive?
So there were probably some basic infrastructure changes we needed to make in terms of connecting, physical connection. COVID probably brought a lot of transformation to many industries. So basic things were paper, mainly for HR's paper-based processes, and then digitally enabling them or transforming them. But before we even got to that stage, we had to increase our capability from a network perspective, which ultimately gives us the opportunity to then expand in our digital transformation journey.
So is that almost like an advantage where, you have systems that are so old, it's almost greenfield?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Many of our systems are old. Not so much with our Unifor ERP system, because we've had that in cloud since 2017, but other applications and systems we use were considered technical debt. and they're the priority in terms of transforming how we work as a business and how we compete for the top talent in the country. I mean, if I was a younger person, I would rather go to somewhere where it was easier for me to do my job and to connect with people than to go to somewhere where we don't actually have to pick up the phone, but figuratively speaking, pick up the phone to find something out rather than being able to find it with a touch of a few clicks.
So how did you go about selecting vendors, and what did you ultimately decide to go with?
So for particularly in the HR sector, we had a look. The business had a look at some alternatives and other solutions for performance management and talent management, because we were already a partner with Unit 4 for our ERP and our HCM modules. They basically came up as a preferred provider for many reasons. One, that we had an existing relationship. Obviously, we've got public sector procurement rules that we need to comply with as well. So just to kind of put that out there. But also the connectivity, it was easy to connect our ERP to our talent management system.
So it was a case of, I guess, the integration won out over best of breed?
Yes, yeah. The integration and also the product itself, the ability to be able to have almost on real-time chats or feedback with your employees. And actually, if you're working in a hybrid team, for example, someone from your project team could give some positive feedback, or maybe not positive feedback, to the line manager. So you can track you can track all of that in one place.
So what has moving to the cloud and a more unified system given the company?
Of many things. One, within my IT head on me, is certainly security. In terms of our data is safe. The other items is also we don't have to support the infrastructure ourselves, because we're putting that into the hands of Unit 4, and as that's their bread and butter at this stage. But also it allows us to be able to connect up to other systems that we have, get data sets together, and ultimately have one single source of the truth and trust our data.
I guess what's next on your list and agenda now? Now it sounds like you have, you have the base in terms of, the SaaS and the cloud and things like that. What's next moving forward?
Well, next is a number of things really, but we still have some work to do on improving our processes. So with one of the projects we have live at the moment is working with our HR colleagues to help improve and simplify their currently manual processes. So we're looking at expanding what we're doing with payroll within our current application, obviously, and moving away from, because we still use quite a lot of spreadsheets instead of actually using the data that's held in the systems, but that's for various reasons. So it's really about kind of continuing to exploit the products that we already have with Unit 4 and other suppliers, to really leverage the data to bring real analytics and together in order to make decisions. So whether that's the unique challenge to us is around about the age of our workforce. So to be able to plan ahead for for recruitment, for backfilling, for knowledge management, for attraction and retention of people, that they're sort of our next steps. So it's just to continue on our journey, but and certainly exploit what we already have rather than building upon additional applications.
How critical is management at this point? I mean, I've kind of followed that space for, it feels like, almost forever. And the idea was, you'd capture this information, and companies have been, the success has been kind of mixed. I guess what's your insights on, knowledge management and just kind of capturing that knowledge from retiring workers?
It is a massive challenge we have, Larry. It's particularly for when you're talking about individual operating sites where there's knowledge literally in people's heads and it's not written down anywhere. We have a separate project that's looking at that, particularly from an engineering and decommissioning perspective. But if we can get that in, that knowledge written down somewhere, well, not written down, I should say, in a data set somewhere, it just makes it much easier to be able to plan and enable ourselves to continue on our mission.
Hey folks, Doug Henschen here of Constellation Research, and I'm here with my great colleague Holger Mueller, and we both attended Workday's Workday Rising event late last month, so we thought we'd share this little recap of Workday Rising. True to form, Holger, for any event in 2023, lots of talk about Gen AI, and let's talk about Gen AI features that aren't quite there yet. What was some of your takeaways from that?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, let's start to get out of our system, right? The AI conversation, right? And Workday left one as a big surprise at the end, right? There was one more thing, Apple style, which Anil and Cheyenne Chakraborty announced at the end, and that's an AI marketplace. And that's, of course, great news, interesting news, but everybody has to have an AI marketplace. And especially the people who don't do so well have an AI marketplace, right? So my observation is like the big push that AWS did on Bedrock. You didn't see any of that on the Microsoft side or on the Microsoft side and on the Google side, because they're doing really well right now, right? Of course, they have partners bring them in, but the marketplace push is always important for someone who's not sure where to put things. But on the flip side, the good news is the marketplace gives model variety, vendor variety, and that's what ERP customers need, given the different regions, different functional aspects, different industries. So it's a good move by Workday, not by Oracle. Yeah. Oracle has a marketplace too, for the record. Yeah.
Well, even Google has, they're a model garden. So Google is a super leader in AI. They have a model garden with 100+ models.
Correct, but it's the AI announcement and then comes the garden. Whereas here it's the garden, if we want to call it, the model marketplace, and then come the announcement. So that's the sequence of events, which is important. But too early to say, too early to judge, right? Workday was very open for the first time to talk about their private cloud infrastructure, where their customers are, right? And we know that it's a little bit easier if you're in the public cloud. That doesn't mean that the Workday approach does not work, will not work, but the federation of data and content for that is kind of like a tricky thing. But we will have to see how good generative AI is going to work in practice for Workday and for Workday customers especially. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah,
so they're talking about, they talked about this AI gateway they're developing for Workday AI. So the Gen AI, things like skills gap analysis, skills mining, time series forecasting, sentiment analysis, document intelligence. And they point to their data: 65 million users, 600 billion transactions. So they're talking about the high quality data set, but setting it apart. So this is something happening inside Workday's own data centers. So some assurance about the security of the data. And they're working with something like 10 to 15 billion parameters. They touted the Falcon B open source model they're working on, but it's going to be 6 to 12 months. They're saying before a lot of these capabilities come to be generally available.
And the interesting thing there was that they gate the gateway, pun intended, through the Workday Extend platform, the EAP, the Enterprise Application Platform, which are close near to my heart. The path of the SaaS vendor, right? And which is, I think, a smart move to do that, because right away when you do AI, you run into issues. How do I connect things? How do I integrate things? And that's what you have to do when you build a standalone application itself, which Extend does. And then we all know there's not enough data scientists in the world, so developers will have to do certain things with AI, a lot of things potentially with AI, the more the better. So I think that's a smart move, which I think is good to set the tone of gating, limiting your AI capabilities, or platforming them on your EAP platform. I don't want to say next day limiting them, right, but providing them there primarily for customers to do something with AI.
Yeah. So, now I was there. You were there mainly about HCM sort of capabilities. I was there mainly about the planning. They acquired adaptive planning about 5 years ago. It's now known as Workday Adaptive Planning. Yep. And again, they've got a bunch of Gen AI plans there in the next 6 to 12 months to bring out generate curated metrics and charts and explanations, natural language questions and answers without SQL coding, answers to popular queries, having those available as sort of prompts, and then spotting risks they talked about compared with predicted performance. And then they also re-announced what this year they called Predictive Forecaster. Last year they announced it as ML Forecaster, but now they've said they've settled on the name and it's close to GA. That is basically more conventional machine learning based, demand forecasting. I talked to one of the customers, it's a big Jiffy Lube franchisee. So they're predicting staffing for their Jiffy Lube sites based on the weather. When it rains, people don't get their oil changed and get that sort of work. But they've seen some pretty good results with that. And then they do, employee scheduling based on the predicted forecast. But other things they have in the here and now, they announced some upgrades, pretty straightforward stuff, personal sandbox for scenario planning, improvements to report scheduling and distribution, more meat and potato stuff. So the sexy stuff is coming. The other routine announcements were pretty routine or finalizing something they had announced last year in the case of Predictive Forecaster. Okay. So kind of slow, steady improvement, right?
Well, good job. Yeah, I always tell customers if it's boring, it doesn't mean it's bad, because it means there's solid execution on important things which matter to them in the daily operation of the ERP system. But good job calling out the common ERP vendor temptation of renaming products and confusing everybody. So well done there, right? So on the
I was kind of surprised. In the keynote, Anil called out that the adaptive planning had a lower CSAT at a customer satisfaction rating at 87% versus 92%. I asked him about that during the analyst Q&A, and he said, well, we're still working on, adaptive planning ran on AWS. Workday runs on Workday, and they're moving into the public clouds. Yeah. So they still have work to do. And he kind of said it's the small business, SMB customers that were using adaptive standalone that, they were trying to work more on the enterprise grade features for Workday customers. Right. So those small business, medium-sized business that they haven't really been paying as much attention to them, and Anil kind of acknowledged that that's probably where the CSAT lag is mostly.
Kudos, because CSAT at Workday was always kind of like in almost unrealistic dimensions. So showing a little realism on that not all products can be super shiny in the 97, 98 plus, I think it's a good sign and shows to reality of enterprise software. So quickly on the HCM side, major progress on the payroll side, 25% more payroll, which means Workday going from 4 to 5 of Australia. It's good to see that Workday is shipping payroll again. The big one in the room is, of course, Germany, where they've partnered, announced an additional partnership. That's the big news with ADP. Very interesting setup there. Takes away a lot of concerns of customers. ADP by itself is also writing that payroll newly, so that's also an interesting scenario. The really thing I heard out there was when ADP CEO Maria Black was on stage, that she was saying, we'll be in situations where Workday is finance and ADP is HCM, right? So ADP is a standalone HCM player and needs ERP partners. So that's what I heard out, and that's the big benefit from them. For Workday, of course, gives them massive payroll capabilities across the world. Also good progress in workforce management, right? Also good progress on the Winley side. Workday can bring together those contingent workers, the gig workers with the regular workers, which is really a key process there. And I had a conversation to speak to a long-term Workday customer on the EAP side. They built over 15 apps. They retired a few already because they were COVID apps, so they don't need them. They mothball them. Hopefully it's not going to come back. So overall good progress on the general HCM functionality and the EAP functionality.
Well, good stuff. Unfortunately, we're out of time, Holger. Any closing thoughts? My closing thought is that this AI, generative AI capability is the gateway. This will kind of be a forcing function that will, I think, accelerate Workday's move to the public cloud, will accelerate better integration between adaptive planning and Workday. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so same along the lines, right? It's important for our listeners and watchers to understand Workday is doing things differently than the rest. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. I think it's going to be a little more challenging, but it doesn't mean that it can't be done on the AI side.
All right, very good. Always great to catch up with you, Holger.
Same here. Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, folks.
Well, that's a wrap on episode 67 of CRTV. Get set for the next episode coming up in 2 weeks, and might just be at CCE.
Yep, that's right. Holger Mueller, Liz Miller are going to bring you episode 68 of CRTV from Constellation Connected Enterprise in Half Moon Bay. I'm looking forward to seeing that happen. In the meantime, follow us on Twitter at CRTV_show. At our website, ConstellationR.com. You can subscribe to Constellation Research on YouTube, and also visit ConstellationR.com/blogs to subscribe to Larry Dignan's weekly Constellation Insights newsletter.
Thanks for watching, and have a great week.
Interesting wallpaper.
And that's what the Airbnb has, unfortunately. Is it highly distracting?
No, it's not a problem.
Okay. And in our final segment, Larry Dignan interviews SuperNova Award finalist Mary Kent of Magnox to learn about their first breakthrough customer experience. I messed up the first part. I don't know why I read ahead.
Went a little long there, guys. But that's okay.
Not so bad.
I got to cut Holger now. He'll want to go 20 minutes on this Workday Rising thing.
He will. Holger, I've never actually seen a real background from you.
There we go.
Well, we have to change that or leave it. I don't know how good the bandwidth is from the end of the world here in California. Look here,
hey, how do I change my headline?
You brought COVID to California.
I brought it back from California, and my wife is not too happy with me and my lack of mask wearing on airplanes.
That door is kind of blocked, maybe? Or I guess
it looks like, is that the bathroom? Can you close that door?
Can you close
the door? This is a walk through. There's a door.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe can you just center it on the screen?
So what? Can do what? I can stand, but we get more sky. You like this better? I think I have less reflection with these glasses than with these glasses. Interesting.
So I'll do a little intro. So, and then the news was 12. So we've got 8 minutes. All right.
Holger, did you hear that?
Holger, keep it tight.
8 minutes. Well, I can do it in 2.
You have never recorded anything in your life in 2 minutes.
Give me the bar, I hit the bar. Usually we have to go longer here in blabber to fill up content, right? So you need, it's like Mark Twain said, sorry I didn't have enough time to write you a short letter. So you need to...
Are we ready?
Yeah, I have to be on the left. Okay.
Yes, that's your appointed place.
All good. All right.
Hey, folks. Silence. 3.